Welcome to Pastor Andrew's Inspirations. If you enjoy these videos on people in the Bible, please click on the red subscribe button on the bottom right of the video. Today we will be talking about the biblical names of Absalom to Adamah. Absalom, the father of peace, according to the Hebrew Bible, was the third son of David, king of Israel, with Maacah, daughter of Talmai, king of Geshur, in 1 Chronicles chapter 3, verse 2, and 2 Samuel chapter 3, verse 3. 2 Samuel chapter 14, verse 25 describes him as the most handsome man in the kingdom. Absalom eventually rebelled against his father and was killed during the Battle of Ephraim's Wood in 2 Samuel chapter 18, verses 1 to 17. Absalom, David's third son by Maacah, was born in Hebron. He moved at an early age along with the transfer of the capital to Jerusalem, where he spent most of his life. He was a great favorite of his father and of the people. His charming manners, personal beauty, insinuating ways, love of pomp, and royal pretensions captivated the hearts of the people from the beginning. He lived in great style, drove in a magnificent chariot, and had 50 men run before him. Little is known of Absalom's family life, but the biblical narrative states that he had 3 sons and 1 daughter, whose name was Tamar, and is described as a beautiful woman in 2 Samuel chapter 14, verse 27. From the language of 2 Samuel chapter 18, verse 18, I have no son to keep my name in remembrance. It is implied that his sons died at an early age, although he had no sons. 2 Chronicles chapter 11, verse 20 says that Absalom had another daughter, or granddaughter, named Maacah, who later became the favorite wife of Rehoboam. Maacah was the mother of Abijah of Judah and grandmother of Asa of Judah. She served as queen mother for Asa until he deposed her for idolatry. In 1 Kings chapter 15 and 2 Chronicles chapters 11 and 15. Absalom's sister, who was also called Tamar, was raped by Amnon, who was their half-brother. Amnon was also David's eldest son. After the rape, Absalom waited 2 years and then avenged Tamar by sending his servants to murder a drunken Amnon at a feast, to which Absalom had invited all the king's sons. After this murder, Absalom fled to Talmai, who was the king of Geshur, and Absalom's maternal grandfather in 2 Samuel chapter 13 and Joshua chapter 12 and 13. It was not until 3 years later that Absalom was fully reinstated in his father's favor and finally returned to Jerusalem in 2 Samuel chapter 13. While at Jerusalem, Absalom built support for himself by speaking to those who came to King David for justice, saying, "See, your claims are good and right, but there is no one deputed by the king to hear you," perhaps reflecting flaws in the judicial system of the United Monarchy. "If only I were the judge of the land, then all who had a suit or cause might come to me, and I would give them justice." He made gestures of flattery by kissing those who bowed before him instead of accepting supplication. He stole the hearts of the people of Israel in 2 Samuel chapter 15. After 4 years, he declared himself king, raised a revolt at Hebron, the former capital, and slept with his father's concubines. All Israel and Judah flocked to him, and David attended only by the Cherethites and Pelethites, and his former bodyguard, which had followed him from Gath, found it expedient to flee. The priests Zadok and Abiathar remained in Jerusalem, and their sons Jonathan and Ahimaaz served as David's spies. Absalom reached the capital and consulted with the renowned Ahithophel. David took refuge from Absalom's forces beyond the Jordan River. However, he took the precaution of instructing a servant, Hushai, to infiltrate Absalom's court and subvert it. Once in place, Hushai convinced Absalom to ignore Ahithophel's advice to attack his father while he was on the run, and instead to prepare his forces for a major attack. This gave David critical time to prepare his own troops for the battle. A fateful battle was fought in the wood of Ephraim, and Absalom's army was completely routed. Absalom's head was caught in the boughs of an oak tree, as the mule he was riding ran beneath it. He was discovered there, still alive, by one of David's men, who reported this to Joab, the king's commander. Joab, accustomed to avenging himself, took this opportunity to even the score with Absalom in 2 Samuel chapter 14. Absalom had once set Joab's field on fire, and then made Amasa captain of the host instead of Joab. Killing Absalom was against David's explicit command. Beware that none touch the young man Absalom. Joab killed Absalom with 3 darts through the heart. When David heard that Absalom was killed, although not how he was killed, he greatly sorrowed. David withdrew to the city Mahanaim in mourning, until Joab roused him from the extravagance of his grief and called on him to fulfill his duty to his people in 2 Samuel chapter 19. Absalom had erected a monument near Jerusalem to perpetuate his name. Now Absalom in his lifetime had taken and reared up for himself a pillar, which is in the king's dale. For he said, I have no son to keep my name in remembrance. And he called the pillar after his own name. And it is called unto this day Absalom's place. Abubas was the father of Ptolemy. He is mentioned only in the first book of the Maccabees, chapter 16, wherein Ptolemy invites Simon Maccabeus and his 2 sons Matthias and Judas to a banquet, subsequently killing them. Achan is the son of Carmi, the son of Zabdi, the son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah, a figure who appears in the book of Joshua in the Hebrew Bible, in connection with the fall of Jericho and conquest of Ai. His name is given as Akar in 1 Chronicles chapter 2. Achan pillaged an ingot of gold, a quantity of silver, and a beautiful Babylonian garment from Jericho. In contravention of Joshua's directive that all the silver and gold and vessels of brass and iron are consecrated unto the Lord. They shall come into the treasury of the Lord, in Joshua chapter 6. Although the account suggests that Achan personally was guilty of coveting and taking these spoils, the chapter opens with a statement that the whole community of the children of Israel committed a trespass in Joshua chapter 7. For Achan's personal sin, all of the children of Israel suffered defeat in battle before Achan was found. The book of Joshua claims that this act resulted in the Israelites being collectively punished by God, in that they failed in their first attempt to capture Ai, with about 36 Israelites lost in Joshua chapter 7. The Israelites used cleromancy to decide who was to blame, and having identified Achan, stoned him as well as his sheep, other livestock, and his children to death. Their remains were burnt by the Israelites, according to the text, and stones piled on top. Akbor is a name that means 9, and is by extension used as the word for mouse. There are at least 2 persons by this name in the Hebrew Bible. In the king's list, in the books of Genesis and 1 Chronicles, Akbor is the father of Baal-Hanan, a king of Edom, but is not actually listed as being king himself, although some assume that he was. In the books of Kings, Akbor, son of Micaiah, is one of Josiah's officers, and one of the 5 men sent to the prophetess Huldah to inquire regarding the book of the law newly discovered in the temple in Jerusalem, in 2 Kings chapter 22. This Akbor is also called Abdon in 2 Chronicles chapter 34. This may be the same Akbor who is mentioned as the father of Elnathan in the book of Jeremiah chapter 26, and who lived in the reign of King Jehoiakim of Judah. Achish is a name used in the Hebrew Bible for 2 Philistine rulers of Gath. It is perhaps only a general title of royalty, applicable to the Philistine kings. The 2 kings of Gath, which is identified by most scholars as Teliz Saphi, are the monarch described as Achish, the king of Gath, with whom David sought refuge when he fled from Saul. He is called Abimelech in the superscription of Psalm 34. It was probably this same king or his son, and the same name described as Achish, the son of Moach, to whom David reappeared a second time at the head of a band of 600 warriors. The king assigned David to Ziklag, whence he carried on war against the surrounding tribes. Achish had great confidence in the valor and fidelity of David, but at the objection of the other Philistine rulers did not permit him to go to battle along with the Philistine host. David remained with Achish a year and 4 months. Another king of Gath, described as Achish, son of Maacah, probably a grandson of the foregoing king, is referred to during Solomon's reign. 1 Kings chapter 2 mentions 2 servants of Shimei fleeing to this king in Gath, and Shimei going to Gath to bring them back, in breach of Solomon's orders. And the consequence was that Solomon put Shimei to death. Achish was a common name for Philistine kings, used both at Gath and Ekron. Achsah was Caleb ben Yephune's only daughter. The meaning of her name is uncertain. She was offered in marriage to the man who would lead an attack on the city of Debir. This was done by Othniel, Caleb's brother's son, who accordingly obtained her as his wife. Achsah later requested and was given upper and lower springs of water in the Negev from her father. Ada, the first wife of Lamech, and the mother of Jabal and Jubal, in Genesis chapter 4. The first wife of Esau, the daughter of Elon the Hittite. It is being suggested by biblical scholars that she is the same person as Beshemath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, mentioned as a wife of Esau in Genesis chapter 26. She bore Esau's firstborn, Eliphaz, and became the matriarch of the Edomites in Genesis chapters 26 and 36. Adaiah was the name of 8 individuals mentioned in the Hebrew Bible. The name means Yahweh passes by. Adaiah, the father of Queen Jedida, he was of Boscath, a town in the kingdom of Judah, mentioned in the Hebrew scriptures. His grandson was King Josiah of Israel. And Adaiah, mentioned in passing as the ancestor of a Levite named Asaph in 1 Chronicles chapter 6. And Adaiah, mentioned in 1 Chronicles chapter 8 as being the son of a Shimei in the Benjamite genealogy. A priest listed in 1 Chronicles chapter 9 and Nehemiah chapter 11. According to Chen and Black, it is possible that this same priest should appear in Nehemiah chapter 12, but has been removed by a scribal error that left the name Jediah in its place. Two descendants of Bani, listed in Ezra chapter 10, and Adaiah, son of Joiarib, listed in Nehemiah chapter 11, and Adaiah, mentioned as being the father of Messiah in 2 Chronicles chapter 23. Adaliah is mentioned only in Esther chapter 9. Adaliah is the fifth of the Persian noble Haman's 10 sons. Adaliah was slain along with his 9 siblings in Susa. In various manuscripts of the Septuagint, his name is given as Barza, Beryl, or Beria. Adam is a figure in the book of Genesis in the Hebrew Bible, and in the Koran and Christian belief. According to the creation myth of the Aramaic religions, he was the first man. In both Genesis and Koran, Adam and his wife were expelled from the Garden of Eden for eating the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Various forms of creationism and biblical literalism consider Adam to be a historical person. Scientific evidence does not support the idea that the entire human population descends from a single man. The word Adam is also used in the biblical as a pronoun, individually as a human, and in a collective sense as mankind. Biblical Adam is created from Adamah, earth, and Genesis makes considerable play of the bond between them, for Adam is estranged from the earth through his disobedience. Adam is used in the collective sense and the interplay between the individual Adam and the collective humankind, in a main literary component to the events that occur in the Garden of Eden. A recurring literary motif is the bond between Adam and earth, Adamah. God creates Adam by molding him out of clay in the final stages of the creation narrative. After the loss of innocence, God curses Adam and the earth as punishment for his disobedience. Adam and humanity are cursed to die and return to earth from which he was formed. This earthly aspect is a component of Adam's identity, and Adam's curse of estrangement from the earth seems to describe humankind's divided nature of being earthly yet separated from nature. God himself, who took the dust from all 4 corners of the earth with each color, red, black, white, and green, then created Adam therewith, where the soul of Adam is the image of God. Genesis 1 tells of God's creation of the world and its creatures, with humankind as the last of his creatures. Male and female created he them, and blessed them, and called their name Adam in Genesis 5. God blesses mankind, commands them to be fruitful and multiply, and gives them dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. In Genesis 2, God forms Adam, this time meaning a single male human, out of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. God then places this first man in the Garden of Eden, telling him that of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, But of the tree of knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die. God notes that it is not good that the man should be alone, and brings the animals to Adam, who gives them their names. But among all the animals there was not found a companion for Adam. God causes a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and forms a woman, and Adam wakes and greets her as his helpmate. In Genesis 3, a serpent persuades the woman to disobey God's command and eat of the tree of knowledge, which gives wisdom. Woman convinces Adam to do likewise, whereupon they become conscious of their nakedness, cover themselves, and hide from the sight of God. God questions Adam, who blames the woman. God passes judgment first upon the serpent, condemned to go on his belly, then the woman, condemned to pain in childbirth and subordination to her husband, and finally Adam, who is condemned to labor on the earth for his food and to return to it on his death. God then expels the man and woman from the garden, lest they eat of the tree of life and become immortal. Genesis 4 deals with the birth of Adam's sons Cain, Abel, and Seth. Genesis 5 lists the descendants of Adam from Seth to Noah, with their ages at the birth of their sons, except Adam himself, for whom his age at the birth of Seth, his third son, is given, and their ages at death. Adam lives 930 years. The chapter notes that Adam had other sons and daughters after Seth, but does not name them. According to Jewish literature, Adam possessed a body of light identical to the light created by God on the first day. These are the people from Absalom to Adamah in the Bible. Adonai Nisi, the Lord is our banner. God's blessings be upon us all.